Caitanya-Caritamrta ki jai. Patita Pavana Shishigunitai ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Samavita Bhaktavinda ki jai. Jai Nitya Guru Premanandi. Hari Bol. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. 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 Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, welcome and thank you very much for giving me your blessings and association, your blessed association. Today we will speak from Caitanya-Caritamrta, Adi Lila, chapter 17, text 308 to 10. I will read 3 verses. And should we speak in German or English? Yes, what? Yes. English or German?
Yeah, if it's okay, English then.
Okay. Is it okay? Versteht ihr nieder genug English? You understand English, ne? So. Otherwise you have ISKCON. You speak Russian? Acha, ISKCON, weißt du? Kannst du nicht so gut. Es kommt, man kriegt... Ah ja, interessant.
Все переводите или только если вопрос?
Prabhu können Sie gut Englisch sprechen, ja, ne? Besser als ISKCON, glaube ich. Ja. Vielleicht setzen Sie sich ein bisschen näher an die Mataji, wenn sie eine Frage hat oder irgendwie nicht folgen kann von dem Englischen her, wenn ich so schnell spreche oder so, sagen Sie mir ruhig Bescheid, irgendwie so Bremse ziehen oder irgendwas, dass ich verstehen kann. Und dann ein bisschen Russisch übersetzen, das wäre sehr nett, ja. Vielen Dank. Okay, then I will speak English. In the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And before we start to read from the Sri Caitanya-Caritamrta Adi Lila, we will read from the Transcendental Diary by Harishavi Prabhu. Travels with His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, October 1976 to November 1976. So now it's November 24th in Sri Vrindavandam. Adi Keshava Swami has sent a detailed report of the New York court case, including his packaged copies of favorable testimonies from psychologists, civil rights leaders, and scholars. He said that both Vasu Gopal Das and Murti Vanya Das have been released from their imprisonments. The judge who released Murti Vanya met with her personally. Das hatten wir doch schon gelesen, oder? Ich meine, das haben wir schon gelesen. Haben wir das nicht schon gelesen? Ich glaube schon. Ah, okay, naja, dann lese ich nochmal weiter. Ich kenne das schon. Okay, anyway. So the judge who released Murti Vanya met with her personally and said that he found her to be serious and intelligent. Still, the demons are continuing to press us, and the general publicity is not very good. A poll of the general public found that 55% thought we were actually brainwashed. The case cost us $8,000 in October alone and will run until March 1977 at least. In Chicago, he said, Yanov and his friends have so far prevented the sale of about 2,000 books at a cost to us of $10,000 in lost income. In New York courts, the judge is deliberately delaying his verdict on our application to legalize the sale of our books in the airports there, thus preventing our Sankirtan activity. And in Los Angeles, the courts have also delayed their verdicts for another 2 months. But despite this, Adi Keshava said book distribution is going on with increasing vigor. Rather than being dismayed by these conditions, Prabhupada is confident. And the more he hears about our attempts to push on the movement, the more enthusiastic he becomes. He offered Maharaj full assurance of support and confidence of victory. I have studied all the letters and clippings in our support. It is very good. This is very important. By Krishna's grace, due to this apparent setback, now this movement will become more prominent. Sometimes these tactics are also employed in military encounters, temporarily retreating, then coming forward with stronger force than before. You may consult with Tama Krishna and Rameshvara, and whatever expenditure is required for emergency legal costs may be loaned from the BBT. We must spend for this purpose. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So did you all understand what is said here? I find it very enlightening here. Nee, du warst doch jetzt, ne?
So.
Wolltest du noch was sagen?
Nee.
Ah, so, okay.
Ach so, ja. Ich dachte, man sollte es wiederholen, aber...
Nee, also das ist so, I will just summarize some few points here and see what Krishna inspires me to speak. So, Srila Prabhupada here gets a report from Adi Keshava Swami and a detailed report from the court case in New York and also from Chicago and LA, how the devotees' efforts to push on this movement and preach Krishna consciousness by distributing the books is being tried to be denied or interfered with, at least to be denied and to delayed. So, but in spite of these difficulties, unexpectedly we could say, Srila Prabhupada is rather enthusiastic about it. Ne? He's like, no problem, in military science you also do that. Sometimes you retreat a little bit and then you go for again with more force. So what came into my mind was also, I heard some time ago, a story. And this story is also very relevant to our practicing of devotional service, especially when we encounter our own difficulties, our own inner demons. Ne? Because here apparently the demons are outside, but later the demons in our own life, when we practice by chanting, by associating with the devotees, lust, anger, greed, laziness, all these things can come up, an illusion. And these are like also our enemies, so to say. Ne? So how can we now learn from this? So the story is very demonstrative. And there was an oasis in the desert some time ago. An oasis. Does everybody know what is an oasis? No? Where there's palms and water and everything in the desert, you know. So people go there, the caravans are going there for drinking their camels and recovering under the trees and maybe eating some, I don't know, coconut or dates or whatever is growing there. And trading. So in this oasis there were several trees, palm trees. And once there was some person who put a heavy rock, on a small palm tree. So that palm tree was very much disturbed from growing, right? There was like, if you cannot grow in height, you have to, somehow develop more strength in order to push through it. And so for many years, all the surrounding trees, they flourished and everything seemed to be right. And this poor small palm tree with a heavy rock on top was, struggling against that rock, trying to also, grow, And then at one point there was a whirlwind coming, a storm, And this whirlwind uprooted all the other palm trees, but not this one who had this difficulty on top. Of course, the stone was then gone, but how come? So we can say, oh, first of all, in the first place, we could say, oh, this poor tree, and oh, how lucky these big trees who are allowed to flourish. And then also later we could say, oh, after this the sandstorm or whirlwind, that oh, poor big trees, they were so flourishing and doing so great, and now they are fallen and broken. And look at this small tree, how fortunate is it? So this is the mentality of material consciousness. We praise something that appears to be good, and we hanker for that, and we try to avoid something that is obviously not good, right? Difficulties and everything. But in devotional life, we want exactly the opposite. We want to be actually equal in all situations. Sri Krishna is explaining in the Bhagavad Gita in the 2nd chapter, I think it's text 13, Matras Pashastu Kaunteya, Shitoshna Sukha Dukkha Agama Painu Nityastang Stitikshasva Bharata. So that means that, can you give me the English Bhagavad Gita, please? I want to read the shloka completely. No, I did not bring my glasses.
That I know was on the matter, was ist so eine Comedy shoot, so eine State. Clear, ne?
Wie bitte?
Ich wollte so eine sagen, dass so eine Vers oder.
Kann man so. Gucken wir mal 2, Vielen Dank, Prabhu. Sehr nett. I know the verse in German, but I want to also be able to say it in English. No, 13 is not. It's text 14 actually, 2:14. Matras pashastu kaunteya shitoshna sukha dukkha agama painu nityas tangsidikshas vavarata. O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress, and their disappearance in due course, is like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception, O son of Bharat, and one must learn to tolerate it without being disturbed. Just like the story with the palm trees. One could side with these tall trees and, praise their opulences and then pity them when they fall down, or, pity this small tree and then praise it afterwards. But this is material consciousness. Because it is all temporary and it is on sense perception, it's based on sense perception. So the devotee is not concerned with the external appearance. Like here, in the Transcendental Diary, Srila Prabhupada is not caring, rather he gets a lot of vigor and enthusiasm for fighting, from these difficulties. He's not seeing that, it costs so many thousands of dollars and it's delaying the distribution of thousands of books. No, he sees actually the value of that, that it's actually pushing on the preaching movement more vehemently. And we can look at this small palm tree with the obstacle on top. Why did it stand after the whirlwind? Because only this tree, because of this obstruction, had developed firm roots deep in the ground and holding on to try to push up. And so, for us in devotional service, when we encounter difficulties of all types, we should be actually grateful for this opportunity to grow more stronger roots in terms of faith and knowledge and devotion. That is always a good opportunity. I just wanted to say that. Does somebody have some other thoughts about what we heard now from the Transcendental Diary?
I'd just like to comment on your comment that it's a great reminder actually also for me, because I think it's good to have in the background of the consciousness to know that all the things that come your way, I think Krishna and God for new challenges. many things to come which are very likable for you, but you need to grow stronger, and so there are many challenges that will come, and during these challenges it's like, for me at least, it's easy to forget that it has a purpose. So yeah, it's nice to have that in the background of the consciousness, that is like God wants you to grow stronger actually. Yeah. And roots are not seen on the outward, right? It's yeah. The outward will follow sometime, right? But the roots will grow and grow silently by itself, So
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
yeah.
So we cannot actually perceive the real benefits of our difficulties, with our senses, but we can feel. When we take shelter of Krishna, we can feel that, actually it makes my faith stronger, and it's good. I can overcome my own limitations, I can grow, I can develop my potential. In coaching also, we want that, that the people, we want to be there for other people to help them to see that, when they are just in their comfort zone, they cannot develop. Because when you always try to do the same, you always want to, or stay addicted to doing the same things, how can you get different results? It's stupid. Like you try to go with the head through the wall, Oh, maybe the wall is from the wrong material, let me try harder, No, you will break your head. Calendar from to smash the mountain with one's head. This is stupidity. Ignorance, basically. Okay, let's read from the Caitanya-Caritamrta. We have the verse here at the board. So, Caitanya-Caritamrta Adilila, chapter 17, text 308. Achintya kalu ye bhava, natang staki na yujayit, prakriti vya parang yachcha, tata chintasya lakshanam, achintya kalu ye bhava, natang staki na yujayit, prakriti vya parang yachcha, tata chintasya lakshanam.
Achintya kalu ye bhava,
Achintya kalu ye bhava,
natam starkina yojajit,
natang stakina yujayet,
prakritya ka paramyacha,
prakriti param yasha,
tata chintyasya lakshanam,
tat achintasya lakshanam.
Achintya kalu ye bhava,
Achintya kalu ye bhava,
natam stakena yojayet,
natang stakina yujayet,
prakriti param yaksha,
prakriti param yasha,
tat achintyasya lakshanam,
tat achintasya lakshanam.
Ashintya kalu ye bhava,
Achintya kalu ye bhava,
natam starkena yojayet,
natang stakina yujayet,
prakritibhya paramyacha,
prakriti param yasha,
tat ashintyasya lakshanam,
tat achintasya lakshanam. Mataji? Achintya kalu ye bhava, natang stakina yujayet, prakriti param yasha, tata chintasya lakshanam. Achintya, inconceivable. Kalu, certainly. Ye, those. Bhava, subject matters. Na, not. Tan, them. Takina, by argument. Yujayit, one may understand. Prakritibhya, to material nature. Param, transcendental. Yat, that which. Cha, and. Tat, that. Achintasya, of the inconceivable. Lakshanam, a symptom. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Anything transcendental to material nature is called inconceivable, whereas arguments are all mundane. Since mundane arguments cannot touch transcendental subject matters, one should not try to understand transcendental subjects through mundane argument. Purport. This verse from Mahabharata, Bhishma Parva 5.22, is also quoted in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 2.5.93 by Srila Rupa Goswami. Om Jnana-timirandasya Gananjana Shalakya Shakshura-militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya-manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svaparantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uttapala Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Midam Tang Sajivam Sarvetam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Paran Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakamitam Shcha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sudhi Vansha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Viva Sindhu Vyayevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Tat Sat. So I will read again the translation and the verse. Achintya kalu ye bhava natang sakina yujayet prakriti vyaparang yachcha tatachintyasya lakshanam. Anything transcendental to material nature is called inconceivable, whereas arguments are all mundane. Since mundane arguments cannot touch transcendental subject matters, one should not try to understand transcendental subjects through mundane arguments. So, this is a verse which is quoted here by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami from the Mahabharata, Bhishma Parva 5.22, as Srila Prabhupada points out. And this verse is then also later taken again by Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada to be quoted in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, of which the Nectar of Devotion is a summary study by Srila Prabhupada. So we can see that this is very important to refer to Shastra in the Vedic culture as a means of acquiring knowledge. And here, the subject matter, the content of this quote is that something that is beyond the perception of the mind and the senses is inconceivable. No? We cannot see things. Like many of us, we cannot see the subtle material substances like ghosts or other levels of existence like astral levels or so many things. Different entities have that capability, like cats, for example, and dogs also. They have certain abilities, so they have a different range of vision. But anyway, here we hear that mundane arguments, and we need to understand what are mundane arguments. They basically follow the conclusions of the mind and the senses. No? So this is relating to empiricism, like the scientists, they want to study everything with their senses. I only trust what I can see, right? So this is empiricism. And rationalism means to follow the conclusions of the mind. Like I previously had a certain experience, and a Vedic example in that connection is that I see some smoke on the mountain. So I understand where there's smoke, there's fire, because I might have this experience from before. So I infer from my previous experience, oh, there must be a fire on the mountain. Right? So this is what rationalism is. And in the Vedic high culture, these pramanas, these ways of acquiring knowledge are called pratyaksha, that which we can perceive directly through the senses, and anumana. Mana is the mind. Anu means following the mind. And there's another pramana which our so-called advanced technocratic society does not refer to. And I would raise an argument, even if somebody would like to speak with this about me later, that it has been purposefully was heißt nochmal schmähen in English? Blasphemed. Ne? To have faith, ne? To be religious. Ne? Because people who are religious, generally they follow the Shastra, ne? The scriptures, revealed scriptures. And they rely on their faith, ne? On their experiences in devotional life, which are also scientific in one sense. So, but they are otherworldly, you could say, because we are not only active on the external plane, but we are acting internally in our relationship to God. So it's a different realm, which we cannot perceive with the mind and senses. We cannot even see the soul. And we cannot see love. We can only see the symptoms of love. We cannot see intelligence, we can just see the symptoms of intelligence. So we can infer back, but this is, therefore here in this verse, it is clearly said that one should not try to understand transcendental subjects. Uttama means beyond darkness, ne? in Sanskrit. That which we cannot perceive, basically. Transcendental subjects through mundane arguments, which are based on pratyaksha and anumana, or empiricism and rationalism, respectively. So we have three pramanas, and so pratyaksha and anumana, or rationalism and empiricism, they can be applied to material subject matters. And it's not that we should be blind followers. Ne? We can have so many interests and engage our intelligence, for example, with logic. In the Vedic tradition, we also find that they have one branch of studying the Vedanta Sutra, which is called Yaya. Ne? And there's also another path which is called Sankhya philosophy, which is very analytically studying the different elements of material nature. So this shows that these things are also there in the Vedic culture. But they have more to offer. And to understand that which is going on a transcendental platform, ne? The development of bhakti, the value which we receive from devotee association and from their blessings, and from being guided by spiritual intelligence through following the words of Lord Shri Krishna in Bhagavad Gita or hearing from his devotees in such literatures like Srimad Bhagavatam or Sri Caitanya-Caritamrta. These things are not subject matters to be understood by the intelligence and senses only. They can be used, they can be employed, but we need to understand they're limited because the subject matter is beyond their realm. So we can understand until a certain degree by applying these things, but to rely only on rationalism or pratyaksha and anumana, then we cannot fully comprehend these spiritual subject matters. It's not possible. So therefore, we need this knowledge to be revealed. We sing every morning here in the Guru Vandana, in the Guru Puja, we sing that the spiritual master is revealing the knowledge within our heart. And why does he do that? He does that because he is pleased with our efforts, by trying to follow his instructions, by engaging our faculties in devotional service, and by cultivating the seeds of devotion and going through the different stages. So when he is pleased and when the devotees are pleased, we get like boosters, so to say, by blessings. So we can, develop more godly qualities. Because next I want to say, what does real knowledge mean? Is knowledge just a means to accumulate some theoretical knowledge? Or does it also mean to actually use that and apply it in our lives? What do you think? What is knowledge? Knowledge. What does knowledge mean? Is it just the theoretical accumulation of some, book knowledge or, like studying the sciences and everything? Or does it also, is it also useful for practicing it in our life? Babu?
I've heard from Maharaj that the theoretical knowledge is really knowledge, and when you take the knowledge and use it in the life, then it's called Veda.
Yeah, and in Sanskrit there's two terms. One is called jnana and the other is called vijnana. So jnana refers to theoretical knowledge, which we also need in order to understand, like a handbook. When somebody is creating something new, we need a manual to operate it, like whatever it is. And so when we have the manual, we know how to utilize it properly, so it may last for a long time and we may get the topmost benefits from that, right? We can try to operate it even without reading the manual, but chances are then it's not going to be that efficient and long-lasting. So, and vijnana means wisdom. That means the knowledge that we experience in our life, and we kind of reaped the fruit of that knowledge. And therefore Srila Prabhupada says, for example, in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, in the preface or in the introduction, he says that this knowledge is not for Lehnstuhl-Spekulanten. Like in older times, they had this very comfortable like sofa where you can sit and you can speculate and you can, feel yourself like a great knowledgeable person. But Bhagavad Gita is not for that. Bhagavad Gita is meant like a survival book to know where are we, how can I survive here spiritually, and how to get out of it. So it needs to be applied. We need to have this theoretical knowledge of Bhagavad Gita and then apply it in our lives in order to practice devotional service, practice Vaishnava etiquette, develop these finer characteristics of godly people, like humility, tolerance, and all these things. And these things don't just come by studying something theoretically and in the next moment putting these things aside and going to smoke a cigarette or drink some beer or whatever, or wine. So then also in Srimad Bhagavatam, the absolute knowledge is distinguished from avidya. In the beginning of the first canto, Srimad Bhagavatam starts out with what is actually real knowledge. Do you remember that from your studies? So, yeah, in the beginning of the first canto, it starts out and establishes what is the subject matter of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And it distinguishes the truth from that which is temporary and which is mixed with motives. Ne? And it says that Srimad Bhagavatam, Amalam Puranam, the pure history, so to say, is meant for people who are free of envy, or at least who are willing to be free of envy, ne? Who are on the path to that. So, also in Sri Ishopanishad, there is a verse, I forgot the number, but it also says that those who have material knowledge and who misguide other people blinded by that, they will enter the darkest regions of hell. Ne? Why? Because material subject matters, material knowledge, which is usually in our time meant to cultivate sense gratification, is just prolonging the conditioned soul's existence in samsara cycle, in the cycle of repeated birth and death. Then, let's say, for example, one has a very nice life. One lives in Hawaii and enjoys his time and everything, just being concerned about sense gratification and I feel good, right? So he's following his mind and his false ego. But what is the results of that? The result is that the person does not care for self-realization because he identifies himself with the body and feels that, oh, I'm quite good situated. I have many fruits, I don't need to work even, I can bath in the ocean, lay in the sun all day long, I have many girlfriends or whatever, party all day, isn't it? So where should this impetus for self-realization come from? In order for that to happen, we need to experience some miseries, generally. Many people, they wake up to self-realization and the importance of it by experiencing something that is painful in their lives, whether it be some intense disease or losing a dear person or having a near-death experience or something. So there has to be some interruption in their normal, comfortable life, right? And then only they're like, oh, that's not it, that's not all, So it's good to experience that. Yeah, I will leave it here at that. But what is necessary to also develop that knowledge is that it takes a conscious effort of discipline. Let's say a mundane example, if one wants to become a doctor in anything, a PhD. So he already in school time, best, this person has to know, okay, I want to be this on that. Ne? And then I study. Already when I'm in school, I sacrifice my free time playing with my other friends outside just so that I can have good grades, because I need a good matura, I need a good graduation from high school so that I can then enter university, right? Okay, so then let's say, okay, this person does that, and then he's going through the bachelor state, master state, and then finally PhD, and then usually before one is allowed to practice, one also has to practice that subject matter for some time. For special, different scientists or something have to make some research and become assistant professors or things like that, before you can really reach the fruit of that. So that means there has to be, because it is some delayed sense gratification, I understand, when I embark on this path, I understand, okay, I have a long-term benefit, Now I need to sacrifice something to get there, right? Like the story in America, from dishwasher to millionaire, How to do that? By saving as much as possible, living very simplistic lives and everything, working very hard and finally getting there, So this is also necessary to have a proper understanding of that in devotional service, that this human form of life is not actually meant to enjoy. There are other life forms like pigeons, for example, who have sex every few minutes, and the pigs who can eat anything and digest anything without any problems, and they don't have to work even. And they can have sex with their sisters and mothers and whoever they want to. Yeah, isn't that great for enjoyment? The human form of life is very limited, actually, if you think about it. How much can we eat, Or even if we engage in that, materialistic topmost activity based on the attraction between the genders, how long can we do that? And then we reap the consequences. We have to actually rear the children, nowadays for at least 30 years or something, so that they finally become a little bit independent and they can find their way through life, But still, responsibility is there always, So this short-term happiness usually is only, temporary and also full of suffering. So it's a good example of this material world. Lord Sri Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita that this material existence means dukkhalayam, it is full of suffering, and it is ashashvatam, it means temporary. And we can reflect, if we want, in our own lives. We had different experiences, maybe sometimes, we had some desire and we got that object or whatever person of our desire. And then what followed after that, for example. Or when we eat some nice ice cream, for example. Last time I gave that example, when I was a small child and youth, I liked to eat very much this fruit cup, in an ice shop. And I was not satisfied with one only. I usually purchased two because I like that so much. The cream and the fruits and the syrup and the different ice, types of ice cream. So, and then close to the end of the second cup, I usually got some intense pain here because it was so freezing cold and I was so greedy to eat that ice cream. So they actually became painful. What to speak of the belly pain, when you eat too greedy, then you can also end up having belly pain, isn't it? Stomach ache. So just to exemplify the nature of this word. And so the consequence of cultivating true knowledge is to, at least in the human form of life, is to gain self-realization. And therefore in usually all ancient cultures, like in the Oracle of Delhi, it says, recognize yourself, erkenne dich selbst. This is like a major thing. Atato Brahma Jigyasa in a Vedic culture. Now that you have acquired this human form of life, inquire, Jigyasa, inquire into what? Into Brahman, not into where I can get my next partner or go to discotheque or eat the next opulent meal or something. We are not like birds and cats, just eating, sleeping, mating and defending. But we actually do have a responsibility that we owe to ourselves. Now that we have achieved this rare human form of life, why is it so special to be in a human body? Recently I even read that even the demigods in the heavenly planets, they want to incarnate here at this time in Lord Chaitanya's movement in the human form of life. And why? Do they consider that more elevated than their own birth? That is because here one can make very rapid advancement in devotional, in self-realization, in devotional understanding. In understanding that I am not the body, I am the soul inside. The body is just a covering, like a glove or like a vehicle or something that is transporting us, enabling us in this material atmosphere to make our experiences and learn from it. Okay, so now I want to read the next few verses. Adbhuta Chaitanya Lilaya Yahara Vishvasa Sejanayaya Chaitanyera Parapasa. Only a person who has firm faith in the wonderful pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu can approach his lotus feet. So I will read that again. Only a person who has firm faith in the wonderful pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu can approach his lotus feet. So what struck me here, there is no purport, but therefore I connect these three verses, 8, 9 and 10, is what is really important for us too is this element of faith. Like we said before, Shruti Pramana, this Vedic additional means of acquiring knowledge by hearing and learning from the revealed scriptures. Shabda Pramana, Shabda, Dankeschön. And So developing faith, it has been blackmailed for, I don't know, minimum 200 years as something that is almost like hallucinatory and as a means to control the folks, right? And I don't know the English word, but something like Aberglauben, like if we, I don't know, what is Aberglaube in English? Make-believe, yeah, like make-believe, something like make-believe, which is like only some mythology or something. Superstitious, exactly, but actually, no, we have been cheated. If you go, and even you go on the internet and you for example, you go to YouTube, there are very nice videos from Dr. Joseph Campbell, for example, about the power of subconsciousness. How we can manifest our own reality. What is the importance of prayer, of introspection, these things. And basing our, let's say, the mind's activities on eternal knowledge, which means Shastra Chakshush for the devotees. So we can find many people like that. And if you can see this, how faith was gradually being taken away from the people, and what is the result of that? Now, people, they don't have anymore the religious values, and they behave like cats and dogs. Have sex with anyone, but it's not just pleasure for a few moments. Then the relationships break up and people end up psychologically messed up. And there are children without parents who grow up and who create so much disturbance for the society. Vana Shankara. So, congratulations. That is a result of neglecting to cultivate faith and understanding what is that, the reasonability behind cultivating faith. Without faith, one cannot even step into a lift. In order to do that, we need to have the conviction, the faith that it will actually carry us up on the building or down in a safe way. Otherwise, if we would doubt that, we would not enter. Right? Like maybe a person was kind of locked up in a lift before and got stuck, and then he's trying to avoid this experience forever in his afterlife. So, because that faith got disappointed, got broken. And many people also that we can meet in the streets, they may have had that experience that either there was some religious fanaticism or something, some immature understanding of religiosity, which was based on sentiments but not on real application in life or something, And so they end up being frustrated because of these few experiences, but, may it be known to everyone. Still, because only we had some bad experiences with limited people who were acting faultily, it does not mean that the scriptures themselves are bad. It means the people have made mistakes. So I challenge everyone to take up that trial and study Bhagavad Gita as it is. Come here to the temple in association of the devotees and challenge us with your doubts and your experiences, and try to really engage your intelligence also in this additional pramana, Shabda pramana. So why should we aspire to have faith? As I said, faith is essential for all of our activities. And even in relationships, we can see that if we don't have trustful relationships, we don't open up. And then we are alone with our whatever mind and problems and everything. This is very essential ingredient of our life. So there's also in the process of devotional service, this is very nicely also exemplified by Srila Dhruva Maharaj, how to develop faith. Maybe some of us heard that there's different stages in the development of bhakti, which starts with association, sadhu sangha. No, first shravana. First we hear, and then, like I said, you hear maybe now today this video, and then you come here, you follow the challenge, you come to the temple in sadhu sangha. Then you engage in practical devotional service, bhajana kriya, regulated devotional service. Then, after bhajana kriya, that is usually when the spiritual master initiates the disciple, then comes anatta nivritti. There are so many unwanted habits, desires, conclusions and constructs and everything that are there that can disturb the rendering of devotional service, and they need to be cleared out. So then this happens. When we engage in regulated practice of devotional service, we apply that knowledge because we have had good association and our faith is gradually growing that, oh, actually it's nice to be here. It's nice to write the verse on the board, actually. It gives me a lot of joy to do that. And I like the prasadam, and the people, they are really happy, They're not hippies anymore, they're happies. And so then the faith is growing, and after this anatta nivritti, when almost all of those anattas have been cleared out, there comes steadiness, nishta. And so this is what this verse refers to. We want to have firm faith in the wonderful pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, so that we can approach his lotus feet, so that we can access his mercy, we can understand him, we can benefit. And then after Shraddha, after Nishta, there comes Asakti. We become attracted. Now, suddenly, regulated devotional service is not very stressful anymore because, we don't need to force us and discipline us, but it becomes sweet. We are rather being pulled like a tractor, Tractor is usually pulling, the plow or whatever, And then we are suddenly being pulled by Krishna's sweetness. And it's like, oh, very nice, becomes very easy and very sweet. We still have to practice, of course, but it becomes, the quality changes, It becomes very sweet. We just have to endeavor up to this point of nishta. Going through this all unwanted and unnecessary things, developing this more steady faith, and then we get taste, actually, the higher taste. And by the grace of that higher taste, which we can also taste in devotional service right from the beginning, actually, because Lord Chaitanya is here, Lord Nityananda, and they are the most merciful incarnations, the most merciful avatars of Godhead, and they also want to encourage us. They fan the development of our enthusiasm, and they help us, So sometimes we may experience difficulties like that small palm tree, and then other times, after we go through these difficulties, we taste so much nectar and we feel like, oh, I never want to go. Please keep me here always, And thank you, dear Vaishnavis and Vaishnavas, for your association. So that is also there. Devotional service is full of sweetness, full of rasa. And then, after anatta nivritti, nishta, asakti, then comes bhava. And after bhava, ruchi, and then bhava, and then prema. So that means these higher stages, they are more and more about entering our direct relationship with Krishna. In the beginning, we devotees, we receive a lot of pleasure by rendering devotional service in practice, by doing the things. But on the later stages, on higher stages of devotion, is more, we are tasting the nectar due to the relationship that we have with Krishna. It becomes more personal. Okay, and the example is here of steadfastness of Dhruva Maharaj. Do you all know the story of Dhruva Maharaj? No? Who does not know the story? One at least? You don't know, I think, Dhruva Maharaj story. You also know it? You? You know?
Little bit.
Acha, very good. And so I just quickly explain that story. Dhruva Maharaj, he was a young boy. And there was a king who had two wives, Suniti and Suruchi, and each wife had one son, Dhruva and his brother. And so the king favored the younger wife, which is called Suruchi. Happens sometimes that, one is more attractive or more loving or whatever, So naturally, this king liked this lady more and neglected a little bit this other lady. And so at one particular incident, the son of Suruchi was sitting on the lap of his father, on the throne, basically. And then Dhruva Maharaj, who was the son of Suniti, also wanted to sit on the lap of his father on the throne. But this co-wife, Suruchi, she saw that and she said, no, you may not sit there. First you have to take birth through my womb. Then you're qualified to sit there. And the father did not object because, he was handpicked by his woman, by his wife. So he was like, well, Haribol. And Dhruva Maharaj being a Kshatriya have certain qualities, and that was in the beginning of the creation in Satya Yuga, They have, power, and they're very much in the mode of passion, so he could not tolerate that inside, even though he was only 5 years old. And he took it as a maha offense, and he ran to his mother and complained and was crying and everything. And his mother said, yeah, my dear boy, I'm so sorry for this experience, but it's true, actually, Your father likes this other wife more, what can I do, And then he said that, yeah, I also want to have he was like a little bit vengeful, can we say that? He wanted to, give back that pain that he experienced, this rejection. He said, okay, I want to have a kingdom which is greater than that of my grandfather. And who was his grandfather? Lord Brahma. So he needed to be greater than the whole universe. And he was very determined. Dhruva means steady, very steady. So then, what did he do? He asked his mother, okay, well, what can I do? And his mother said, okay, I don't know, I cannot help you, but I know the people, they go to God, and they get all of their desires fulfilled by Him. Okay, so where can I find God? Yeah, in the forest. And again, he was gone, he was 5 years old, going in the jungle with ferocious tigers and snakes like boa constrictor, and any time of, difficulties and problems there. Small child, without shelter and without any second thought, he just went to the forest. And then, in the forest, he, after some time, met Narada Muni. He came to him and tested him also, He said that, oh, you're such a young boy, you should go home now, Yeah, you want to practice self-realization, but people do that in their old age. So now go home, and then later you can come back. And Dhruva Maharaj, being raised in a royal household, also possessed, of course, culture. And he said, oh my dear Lord, I thank you very much, I appreciate your words, but this is not practical for me. I want a bigger kingdom than my father and grandfather, And if you can help me and teach me some process how I can achieve that, how I can find God to fulfill my desire, then please tell me. Otherwise, thank you very much. So he was not saying them get lost or something, but he was like, okay, thank you. So he passed the test of his spiritual master, because the spiritual master really wanted to see if he is really determined, if he means it true with self-realization, And so after half a year, in Srimad Bhagavatam, we find the more lengthy description, he practiced more and more severities. In the beginning, he was just eating some fruits, and then later he was just eating some leaves, then only dry leaves, then only he started to drink very few times in a month, and then also with breathing, he breathed, very few times also in a month or something. I forgot the details, but the story is there in Srimad Bhagavatam. And finally, he achieved the darshan of Lord Vishnu, who came out of his heart and appeared in front of him. And he got the perfection of his endeavors, of his tapas, of his austerity, of his penances. Like the person who studied. Do you remember in the beginning I spoke about the student who wants to become PhD, doctorate, or whatever? So he went through all these difficulties, very much focused, very single-pointed, and then he achieved the benefits. And what was the benefit? Then, when he saw Lord Vishnu, Lord Vishnu said, okay, I'm here, you can have every blessing you want. And then he prayed to him very humbly. He said, my dear Lord, I was looking for broken pieces of glass, and now that you have so kindly appeared in front of me, you are the topmost jewel. In other words, he realized by his practice that what he was aspiring to get before was all useless, temporary, and was, like a piece of broken glass. And that the mercy of the Lord, who helped him to achieve that darshan, was actually the most fulfilling, the most pleasing. Then he didn't feel anymore that burning desire, right? He was completely satisfied. So that is the result of practicing devotional service, that we become completely happy inside, no matter what happens outside. If the world goes under, okay, Haribol, we are not the body. Of course, we need to take care properly of our bodies and minds and of the world and our other people and even animals, and we have so many responsibilities to take care of the planet too. But still, the devotee knows, okay, anyway, everything is temporary. So we can see that we need this one-pointed determination. Right? And we need to pass the tests, because there are tests in devotional service. And interesting news, like when you go to a school, you start in first grade, second grade, and then finally you make your matura or you study. The tests become more difficult. And believe me, they can become unbearable. You don't want to go through them because they are so painful. But somehow or other you go through them by just holding on to the lotus feet of, the instructions of your guru, the mercy of the devotees or whatever. And then, once Krishna saw that you actually, took shelter of him more and you apply what you learned and everything, then he gives you the fruit of this knowledge. And there's so many blessings, like an ocean of blessings, And after you went through this difficulty of this test, and after that you understand, oh, actually I grew so much. I developed this new potential within me, for example, that previously I did not even think about so much. I knew, okay, I have this inclination or something, but I didn't count it really as an asset or something. And then suddenly you can, you become a different person. Your heart becomes changed and you become actually feeling for other people, interested in each other's welfare. And you understand more and more your relationship with Krishna. You become detached from this temporary material world. So it's actually a very nice process. And then the last verse, chapter 17, text 310. Prasange kaila e siddhante rasara iaye shuna shuddha bhakti hoyatara. In this discourse, I have explained the essence of devotional conclusion. Anyone who hears this develops unalloyed devotional service to the Lord. And this is called Shrutipala, the fruit of the Shastras. When we hear attentively and we try to understand and do our best to act that out in our lives, apply this, what happens is we get pure devotional service. And Srimad Bhagavatam mentions that in the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam is mentioned that only by pure loving devotion to Lord Krishna or Vishnu, we can actually become fully satisfied. Otherwise, if this is mixed with some other desires, like I want to enjoy some particular activity or asset, or I want to speculate, or I want to be liberated from the material world, we still don't get that full satisfaction. Really, the satisfaction lies in reconnecting with our origin, which means establishing our eternal loving relationship with the spiritual master and with Sri Krishna, which are so mercifully appearing here and distributing their mercy so easily just by chanting Hare Krishna attentively and taking shelter of the devotees. And the process, we can actually gain the highest benefit, which even the devatas in the heavenly planets are yearning for. Normally, materialistic people, they want to have heavenly enjoyment, right? They want to play like God. They want to have heaven without God. They want to enjoy a lot and control. But here we learn in devotional service that actually by becoming a servant of the servant of the servant, this is the best thing that can happen to us. And why? Because then we get the blessings of the other people that we serve, like the spiritual master or Srimati Radharani or Tulsi Devi and so many other beautiful personalities. And so this blessings of Sri Guru, Sadhu and Sri Krishna and Shastra also, they are very, very potent. So we really need to understand, to hear from the proper source with the proper mentality, attitude, and render devotional service practically. So that's it. Just to summarize, I was speaking a little bit about the value of cultivating knowledge, and also real knowledge, and of the making the best use of the bad bargain, which is this body, actually. Not to live as an animal, but to inquire into Brahman. And then that is also essential to grow one's faith. And also to get the favor or the blessings of the Lord and his devotees. And so I just want to say, this material consideration or value of trying to be independent is actually faultily applied when we try to avoid disciplines and everything, because this human form of life is meant for that, for tapas. And we can become independent of our conditioning and of whatever happens in this world only by being fully satisfied within ourselves. Atmarama. Because this is one quality of Lord Krishna. Thank you very much. Sorry for having a little bit gone over time. And do you have some comments or questions? Yeah, Prabhu?
The first as a question, or more as a comment, that I like your vision very much, as you began also with a transcendental diary, with this that the difficulties, they make us stronger, and this is actually a way to get purified, because this is a vision I like more than when a devotee say, this is a karma. So you get some problems, this is a karma. It's not so nice, but when you think that it's just to learn, to improve yourself, to get as a future.
It's an opportunity for development.
Yes.
Instead of a problem. There's no problems really, there's just challenges to grow and develop and become more happy and better to relating to people and everything. Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I interrupted.
Yes, that's absolutely true. And what is the first in the Bhagavad Gita? Maybe we can read it, when Krishna says what he defines as truly knowledge. Do you know this? No, the number.
In Srimad Bhagavatam, this is in the
Bhagavad Gita. This is in a couple of.
Oh yeah, this is chapter 13, I think. No? 8 to 12 or something. 8 to 12.
Okay. Now we'll read this.
Prabhuji was asking where in the Bhagavad Gita Lord Sri Krishna is defining what is true knowledge. So anyone who has Bhagavad Gita as it is, find chapter 13, text 8 to 12. Thank you. And interestingly, that knowledge starts with humility and freedom from pride. So we can see that this is real knowledge, has an effect, has a fruit on our attitude. And it's not just something in the head. It's changing the heart. Thank you. Another comment or question?
I have two, actually, and I like to add one thing, which is mostly people say, I hear people say that accept your karma, and I want to ask, like, is this like the right mindset to say this, or to perceive this? These karmas are like to say it's challenges and to just grow, or is it also could be a karma as well? Like
both is right. So what do we do with that now? Prabhu was saying that some people, they may say, okay, this is your karma. And then previously, Prabhuji was commenting that actually this, let's say, karmic lessons that we get, or whatever difficulties that we may face in our lives, that they are actually opportunities to grow, that there's no problems but opportunities. And both is correct. What do you say to that?
yeah.
But in devotional service we have a third option. Act without creating karma, akarma. Become free from karma. And Srila Prabhupada, he said, he gave the example of the fan. Do you know that? A fan? so ein Deckenventilator. In India, where it's very hot, or maybe also in Dubai or something, in hot countries, they have a fan, like an air conditioning kind of thing. So when you plug out the electricity of that fan when it was running, or you switch off the switch, then it still runs for some time. But then finally it stops. And in devotional service, it's also like that. When we simply do whatever we are told to do, how to behave, which etiquette to follow, and how to conduct our lives and everything, we plug out that plug from material life, from this material atmosphere. But still it will run a little bit further, We also have this body, prarabdha karma, which is, congratulations, you have until the end of the death, until the end of this life. But still, we can change so much. The qualities of the gunas can change in the body. We can come to the platform of sattva gun and understand more and more, become more and more aware and see things in the true light. And become, like it is said, what is it said? Charito or something. We can develop the character which is mentioned in the Vedas, the character of a sadhu.
Yeah. And talking about development, I like the story that you mentioned about your son.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a comment when he was when he went to the jungle, and then he said first eating fruits, and he was like kind of developing bit by bit. I want to ask you about this development when it comes to the eating fruits and then drinking a few times a month.
What do you think? What is your inspiration? What do you feel? Not just from the Rashtriya.
Attachment to is it like detaching from the?
Yeah, you just grasp the essence,
Yeah.
To practice, to becoming more and more detached. And it requires some discipline, so this is really still valuable and relevant for us. But this has been in a different yuga, in Satya Yuga. And in Satya Yuga, the means of self-realization was to meditate, sometimes for 60,000 years, because people lived for 100,000 years. Nowadays people are very short-lived, And you may believe it or not, but still there's evidences, like even in the Bible, when I was young, I was from Christian tradition, and I don't refer to the Bible normally as a reference or something, because it was, edited by humans and it's not purely God's, according to my understanding of the history of the church and everything, So, but still, there were people who lived up to 700 years or something. So that was because in the previous Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, people could become 1,000 years old. Satya Yuga, 100,000, Treta Yuga, 10,000, and in Dwapara Yuga, 1,000, and in this Kali Yuga, 100, approximately. Of course, there's exceptions, but for the general masses, And so, yeah. So does that satisfy your inquiry?
Yeah.
So it means
Yes.
So now is coming as a Sattva Yuga in the Kali Yuga. So it means it's probably that we will live not 100,000 but
Exactly. I was thinking about this.
Interesting. Well, it depends. If we can overcome our conditioning, normally the people are living by spending their breath, prana. But if you learn how to retain your breath, and this is real practice of yoga, is actually some huge austerity, like Dhruva Maharaj. When you read that story, you can see he was really serious, Can you imagine just eating leaves that have fallen from the tree maybe once a week? Or breathing just, every few days or something. I don't know the cycle again that he was breathing, but very intense type of detachment. And this practice of yoga was actually meant for Satya Yuga, as it means for self-realization. In Treta Yuga, there was yagyas that were being performed, big yagyas, very costly, because they used golden paraphernalia and had tons of geese and grains and everything, which is impractical nowadays, And then in Dvapara Yuga, the process to achieve self-realization was to worship the deity, Shri Murti, Shri Vigraha, in the temple very opulently, like a king, so to say, you know. And then now, in this age of Kali, the process of attaining the self-realization is to chant God's holy names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So that is at least to complete this. So yoga is not our practice in this age, but it can be helpful. Ne? Like Vanashrama is also not that we are so much into Vanashrama, but it can be helpful. Like when you break your leg, you have crutches, right, to move, or a wheelchair or something. So these things are meant as an add only, not as a substitute. Not only by doing yoga or Vanashrama you can get that, no. But they are, as long as they are helpful in supporting you in your, in developing self-realization, then we should take them. But it's not also necessarily that we become suddenly 100,000 years of age. Of course, this body is a manifestation of a certain karma that we inherited from our previous activities, So when the spiritual master accepts the disciple and initiates him, at that time a lot of the disciple's karma is being transferred to the guru. And therefore, very often when we read Caitanya-Caritamrta, for example, we hear that we should stop acting sinful, right? Follow the regulative principles, chant Hare Krishna, yama niyama, like in yoga. They also have things to avoid and things to practice. So our concern is practicing chanting Hare Krishna, associating with the devotees and serving devotionally. And we will see, what is Krishna's plan for us, whether we become 150 years old, or maybe 1,000, or maybe we die tomorrow. Whatever helps us in our self-realization is not up to us, it's up to Krishna. Our main focus should be, okay, I know what is the best way to meet this self-realization, and I apply myself to that. That's the real use of intelligence. Analytically, first of all, examining what is the best path for me to go. We can use that, We should not become blind followers. We should distinguish by using our intelligence, the faculty that Krishna gave us. And then, once we make the decision, stick to it. Not just, I take this and a little bit from here and a little bit from there. No, then you are a nonsense, a rascal. Because then you are following the mind. What it feels like or not feels like. No, we are not that. Mind is there to rule and guide the intelligence is there to rule and guide the mind. The mind should be concerned about controlling the senses, because the senses are what entangle us in this material conception. Like, I hear some nice music during japa time, and then, such a nice music, and I just feel like, nice, Or I remember something from my childhood or whatever, No, that's an anatta then, The main means of self-realization is to chant Hare Krishna. It's a little bit over the limits, but I hope it was helpful. You also had a question?
And what's regarding the spiritual master when he takes up your karma? Does he talk about it, what your karma was or what your karma is? So he shares the knowledge, or is it like he absorbed the karma and it's like, okay, I do not reveal what you have been carrying with yourself?
Well, believe me, from my own experience.
To sit properly, yoga, for a longer time. Because I see you sitting like this. Normally in the temple it's not allowed to sit like this.
Normally I'm sitting here, but
I'm just saying.
Feet got tired.
Thank you very much for the question. No problem. The spiritual master, according to my experience, gives us instructions. And these instructions also, somehow, they contain instructions for the future, challenges that are coming. It's really interesting, how they can know all these things before, I don't know what is their connection to Krishna, because I did not experience that myself. So you would need to ask a spiritual master for that. But my experience as a disciple is just that we just need to have firm faith in the instructions of the Guru and simply follow them, and then the things are going to be revealed from our heart. And we can understand, we can get the perception for that. But it's introspection, it's not necessarily being revealed from external or, experiencing an electric shock when we get initiated and have so many realizations. No, this is no mystical experience, this is just something very elemental, so to say, to get us connected to, like a plug, when you plug in an electricity plug, then you're connected to the circuit of electricity, and you can operate accordingly, heat or cool or whatever, cook, wash the laundry. But without this connection, we are lost to ourselves, which is not exactly ourselves, which is just the conditioning of the field that we got in this incarnation. Mind, senses, intelligence, false ego, and the gunas. Because the self is the soul. Thank you, such nice questions, I'm really happy. So let's stop here, it's already became a no. Okay, Niklas Prabhu.
Because this Ekadashi seems to be very difficult. To understand how the fast is actually going on. Some say it's today, some say it's yesterday, some say it's tomorrow.
Today the fast has been broken at 12:05 and sometime few hours afterwards.
In the afternoon, or in the noontime.
Yeah, noontime. So it's just a little longer.
What's that?
Some opportunity for us to become more austere, practice more penances, and tolerate the difficulty of not eating or not eating grains. Yeah, exactly. That's the benefit of Ekadashi, that we have more time for spiritual practices, for chanting and reading and, singing bhajans or something, for focusing our mind on the lotus feet of Shishigonitai. Right. Kantat Srimad Caitanya-Caritamrta ki jai. Srila Prabhupada Jitavana ki jai.
Завтра до 12. Сегодня позавтра. Да. Если на это даже поспал, можно на 2 даже опуститься.
You say her grace?
В смысле, не стоит злоупотреблять, то есть время на 2 даже. Возможно, повторить.
В храме жил в сознании Кришны. Вот здесь он лучше, действительно.